Hello, good evening. I'm Shubhangi and I lead the branding and communications team at An Academy. And I welcome you all to today's Talking Design session with Shayak Sen, who's the head of design at Myntra. I know we're all very excited to dive right into the conversation with Shayak, but before we sort of speak about today's conversation and move on to today's conversation, I would like to take a moment and talk a little bit about And Academy and what is it that we do here at and why do we do and what do we do it. Um, so An Academy is the brainchild of Dr. Jitin Chadda, who's also the founder and CEO of Indian Institute of Art and Design, a brick and mortar design school based in New Delhi, Okhla. So and actually comes from that pedigree of having imparted design education for over a decade now. How is IIAD and different? There is that in IID you'll find your traditional offline degree courses in the domains of design, but in and you find your professional short courses that are delivered online in the domains of graphic design, interior design, and UI UX design. Most of these are part-time courses. We have one full-time course in graphic design. Other than that, we have part-time courses only. Um, but these online courses borrow a lot from the offline teaching methods and sort of create or simulate that environment for you that you will find in a offline design school. But we sort of get you that quality of education from the comfort of your home or your wherever you're joining us from. Um, so we teach with the convenience of online, with the effectiveness of offline. All of our courses and the curriculum are designed by people that are industry practitioners, but also teachers, academicians. So you get very relevant, up-to-date knowledge about what is happening in the industry, and then you get to sort of touch base with them on a regular basis. What works with clients, what doesn't work, what is working in the brand space, in interior space, in UI UX space, etc. Um, like an offline school of learning, like an offline model of learning, all of our classes are also very live and interactive. So unlike today's session where Shayak and I were talking and then you were sort of uh, absorbing the information as a mean audience, as a passive audience, that does not happen in our classes. Those are very live and interactive. We rely heavily on tech and human support to sort of create that environment for you. You also work with the industry experts who are not only just designing these curriculum for these courses but also delivering the curriculum. So again, you get to work with like people that are part of the industry and you get to learn with them. So other than teaching you the run-of-the-mill software, your Adobe InDesign, Adobe Creative Suites, and AutoCADs and Figmas, we also focus a lot on design principles and design processes. So you do get to learn your softwares, whatever is relevant for you, but you also understand and learn how to think like a designer, how to break down design briefs into problem-solving statements, how to operate like a designer. Work on with mentors and feedback. So all of our curriculum is also woven with a lot of projects. We also focus a lot on the theory of learning by doing. So you go through a module and then you work on a project. So you apply what you've learned in the module and then sort of build your experience from there. Then when you're working on these projects, they ultimately at the end of your course culminate into a portfolio. So you have something to show for at the end of your course. So you can apply for internships, you can apply, um, you can reach out to clients for freelance projects, to potential recruiters and employers, etc. with that portfolio. We also have a lot of faith in the kind of quality of education that we provide here at AND. We also uh, give you job guarantee on some of our courses, given that you also do your part of coming to classes and meeting your portfolio and submission requirements. Um, so yeah, we've for over 3 years now. We have a blend of 1,500 plus learners, 50 plus mentors, 200 plus industry connects, and we're rated 4.6 on Google. Other than that, if you're wanting to join one of our courses, you can reach out to us. You can just like search us on andacademy.com. You can reach out to us via call or email. Um, yeah. With that, I will on to today's agenda. So today we're having a conversation with Shayak under the series of masterclasses, which is called Kaleidoscope. So Kaleidoscope was envisioned as a series of masterclasses where we invite design practitioners to sort of share their perspective on design. What is it that they think is working, to share their journey, their experiences, etc. And today we have with us Shayak. Shayak is the head of design at Myntra with 15 plus years of experience leading design teams across India's top product companies, including Vedantu, Meesho, Practo, and Common Floor. He brings a unique blend of entrepreneurial and corporate expertise, having co-founded Cheese, a UX studio recognized by among NASSCOM's emerging 50. Shayak specializes in user-centered product innovation, scalable design systems, and team leadership. A mentor and speaker at leading design conferences, he continues to shape the next generation of designers outside of work. He enjoys illustration, playing his guitar, and writing the occasional design rep. With that, I welcome you, Shayak. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, and thanks for this lovely introduction, and super excited to be here on this, you know, conversation.
Great. So let's start. I mean, I would like to start this conversation at the very beginning. Um, this is something that a lot of learners are also going through or are in the middle of their journey. Um, you actually come from an architecture background. You did your graduation in architecture, and then which is a very tangible physical field. I am trained as an architect myself, and then you move to sort of UI UX or UX design. How did that change sort of happen? What made you shift from designing stores to designing digital products?
Yeah, I think couple of things. One is that I was always very curious, okay, and kept learning new things, and I completely loved doing my architecture, studies, and I loved building spaces. But what I think at the core of it, what I when I look back, I feel that Uh, to me, what excited me most was the concept of building an experience. So even in architecture, when you're building a space and you're building or putting some masses together, you are actually building a space around it, and you want the people to experience that space. So I would think of space in that way, like, when you walk into a room or walk into a space, how the space feels to you, what kind of emotions that you kind of convey to you. And So I think that was at the core of what I was doing at the end of the day. Um, I think while I was at the end of and also to understand that the world was changing very fast in 2000. You know, 8 I graduated from IDC, but before that, 2006 when I completed my architectural degree, the world was changing very fast, and the tech industry was rapidly shaping up. And but like I said, I was interested in building experiences, and also through that experience, probably pass on a message to the user, or some kind of message. And it was a meandering journey for me, because from there I then came to a graphic designing, where you are building those experiences on a 2D space, and you are trying to pass on a message through that, right? And then I felt that this whole experience plus message has to play a bigger role in human life. um, and I wanted to make movies where again it's about building an experience and pass on a message to somebody through the movie. And that Pursuing that, I reached IDC at Bombay, where I went to do films. But then I realized that design has a bigger role to play. It's just not about making films, but you can improve human life by making good design. And then, and 2008 is when I graduated. 2007 is when iPhone was launched, and it became very clear that there's a huge contribution to the human life that you can make by creating really effective and well experiencing tools and services and apps for the user. And I think that kind of made me really take the plunge that, okay, I want to do this, because this is a completely new medium. There is the rules of this medium are not set, and you get to write the history in some way by being a part of this whole journey. I think the interesting part is that I feel that in many ways we are in the same kind of a juncture after at least 15 years of movement of UX design, because UX did not exist in the form and shape that we know now, and it kind of uh, uh, grew and evolved in the last 15 years, and now it has reached a state when AI has come in, that it's again the rules of the game will be written again from the scratch. So I think, yeah, so for me, it was always about being curious about what is happening around me. And the second was that how can I build experiences that move people and help them live a better life? So I think that's what has kept me going.
Right. And UX is also a very new word. It used to be product and then sort of moved to UI
Yeah,
UX.
I mean, yeah, I think previously it was called interaction design. So when I joined IDC, IT
Right.
Bombay, I think that was the first year when this course was introduced in IDC and it was called interaction design. I don't think anybody understood outside the college that what interaction design means. And neither our parents nor the clients. But eventually the user experience what stuck around. Then it became UI UX. Okay, and these words don't make too much sense to me, to be frank. Okay, there are some obviously um, relationship. Like UI, you know what is UI is, and UX is about slightly larger. And I have my point of views there, but not getting into the nuances of the terminologies. But then multiple words came up because or the because product design, because then you are only focusing on the product part of the experience, and that's how product design came into, and there's so on and so forth. It has now evolved into so many different fields now. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to know, since you come from a very, I would say architecture is one of the very oldest forms of design,
Hmm.
um, education or teaching that sort of existed around the world, I would, so to speak. So coming from a very traditional background, has your education in architecture changed or influenced the way that you approached UI, UX, or product design now? Are the principles still the same? Do you still apply what you learned really back then, or has it like sort of changed and evolved over the years?
See, I mean, when it comes to, I think two things. One is obviously architecture also teaches you to put the person or the human at the center of the design experience, right? And that is relevant to everything that you do. So that is of course there. Then of course the whole part about building these spaces, right? And I think the aesthetics, the form, I mean the fundamentals of form, and what is aesthetically good is something which is also borrowed from there. Probably, it kind of kept moving on along with me. I think one something that I went deeper into, and it has nothing to do with architecture, but I think it is primarily my own personal way of looking at things, which also evolved when I was in architecture, was I try to see patterns. Okay. And architecture is a lot about patterns, of course, the aesthetic part also. When like you go into the architecture of the old ancient heritage architecture, when you have columns and when you have motifs which keep repeating itself, you are basically playing with patterns and scale, and these are like something which is universal in nature. Now, while I was doing this, I also came across this whole concept of emergent properties. Okay, which fundamentally means that you can and uh, in nature a lot of things, I think the whole trajectory of this was I was looking for that why something looks beautiful to human eyes. Okay, and then you obviously come across some theories about that how nature, because our vision has been trained by nature, and it's an evolutionary process, and you react and respond to certain mathematical equations and ratios. Now, and then you see something at the top level, which is an emergent property of those simple rules. Now, I was trying to create, and that led me to find something called as cellular automata, which is, and one of the examples is something called Conway's Game of Life. And I was really inspired by that, and I tried to use those theories of mathematical algorithms and cellular automata to create spatial plans and systems. Okay, if you want, I can share a small um, uh, video with you. Okay, and that you can understand from that if that's okay, right?
Yeah, that works.
Um, do you see my screen? Um, can you see my screen?
We can see your screen, yes.
Yeah, so fundamentally what I'm saying is that, you have something called, this is Conway's game of life, right? Which, is basically a cellular automata. And those who are interested in this group and the call, I obviously cannot take a lot of time in explaining this because it's a complete one session itself. But you can go and read about it. But what I did was that I used the same kind of logic to build uh, one cell space, which you can then add some rules to it about how much light it can allow and how much connection it needs to have, which eventually will give rise to patterns like these. Okay, and which later on can become more exclusive space patterns. And recently, because of AI, I was able to kind of, because that time I did not know coding and I did not have access to coding or computer even that point of time. I was doing dry runs. But if you let me, so can you see the screen now? Do you see the a kind of a buildings?
Yep. Pink, yellow, blue. Yes, we can.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, this is basically, if you see, this is, now if I kind of code this up, okay, and it will, and use more simple rules, it will generate a building structure or a kind of a city structure by itself. At the core of it, you can see it is basically the same, cellular grid space, and then you kind of apply those rules to it. So I think this is something that has stayed with me even in design today, because what has happened is, in design, when I was building my design system in product design, I use the same principles to build the design system. And now when we design our storefronts, okay, so for example, in Myntra, you have the home page, or in the YouTube, you have the home screen where you have just scroll through it, or even in social media, like these are built on the same, some kind of similar rules like this, because you have some basic fundamental rules and you lay out the spatial pattern based on those rules and algorithms, and then it self-generate itself. So yes, that is something that has stayed with me, which is finding patterns and then codifying those patterns and then applying them across various places. Yeah.
That's so incredibly interesting and such a great insight into your sort of world of design. Um, So what I want to touch upon, I think this is something that our learners sort of struggle with. And I would say most people in the lay terms or in the lay language, when we talk about design, people sort of often refer to design as to do more with like aesthetics or what it looks or what is presented in front of you. As to when you speak to designers, they sort of approach it as a problem solving way of, I would say, life almost. So where do you stand? What is your sort of view? How much of aesthetics do you weigh into your process, and how much of problem solving do you perceive it as?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very tricky question, because you have to, because the word designer is very problematic in my way, because in my opinion, because there are, rocket spaceship designer, mechanical designers. There are, electrical software designers who are designing, algorithms or architecting something. So, so the, the point of problem solving, I think a lot of people are, a lot of other fields are also doing problem solving. And of course, there is I think that part is very important for the designers like us. So we are product designers, right? And we are basically designing the digital experiences. So I think in this particular field, both these parts are very equally important. One is the aesthetic part till the time it is there. Because it could be tomorrow that you don't need screens or you don't need visual communication. And but the other part is also, but still the time it is there, the it's not just aesthetic, but at least the fundamentals of a visual communication has to be really, really solid. You might not want to make it look luxury or make it look aesthetically pleasing, but it has to communicate what you're trying to communicate, right? So I think that absolutely has to be, those core fundamentals are very important, and that's the important part. But then the other part is also equally critical, which is how you break down the problem for the human experience, and then you stitch them together to build that whole experience, and bringing in those insights about, and that's where we as a designer is different from somebody who is like a mechanical designer, because somebody's a mechanical designer building a chair will make it fundamentally functional. And here, if the visual is not important, but how somebody will feel when they sit on a chair is what you have to design, right? I think so. Hence, I would say for us, both the things are very important. You cannot discredit this part and the experience part and discredit the, aesthetic part as well. So yeah.
Spoken about journey, I think everybody must speak to you and talk to you about what is it like to be the head of design at Myntra. But what I wanted to know is that you co-founded a design studio very early on in your design journey. What sort of motivated you to take that entrepreneurial route at that point? What is it that you were thinking, and what is it that you wanted to do with that?
Yeah. By the way, am I audible clearly? Because Maggie, your voice is
Yeah,
breaking in between, so I don't know whether it's your side or my side. Okay. Mm, mm.
you're audible to me properly.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I think see, the thing was, the like I said, because when I made a decision that I want to now pursue UX design and digital product, and the digital experience space was not evolved because iPhone has just launched, apps were very new, and no companies. I mean, it's very interesting because, and I was fortunate to be part of that time. There were hardly any companies in India which was working specifically in this area. There were few, of course, apart from us, and that gave me the confidence that this is a market which is growing up, and there will be more and more requirement for this kind of, talent or skill. And there's not much in India here, and hence I decided to kind of start a company. Um, uh, about the confidence part, about because I had worked with, I had done a lot of internship and I was doing a lot of hustle work before that. So I had some confidence about that I can put together a team and everything. So yeah, I was fairly confident that I could pull this off. So, and that's why I jumped into it.
Right. And as you've already mentioned about sort of taking different roles and taking different things from different parts of your design education and journey, you have become like a trend spotter, and you can't code, but you've become a person who can sort of, rely or create patterns now. Um, you are an entrepreneur, you're a designer. How many you're wearing so many hats, you're a leader, you're a designer, you're a business person, doing so many things. How much do you think uh, is it important for a designer to be able to sort of do like know or like do be to be able to do multiple roles in just being a designer? What sort of roles should they be aware of? The second part is, because you've also started your own practice, how much of a designer is also being aware about business and like the intricacies of running a business, and to be able to understand and take insights from, if not like by themselves, but like a business team that they are working with.
No, I think it is very important. So, see, I mean, I think I don't have to say this, but we all know it is important, right, to understand the business, because if you don't understand the intricacies of business, you will not be able to, um, you know, put your design into the perspective that it requires to be, put into, so that the business can actually utilize it, right? Now, the point is, I mean, and because this is for the audience here, that can you go into the market and be business, immediately understand all the nuances of business right away? I cannot, because you're young, you have a lot of passion about what you do. And see, when I started off, I didn't understand business that much. I did have a fair sense of business, but I had a lot of biases. I There had been times when I fought with my client that, okay, you don't know how to do this. And they will say, you don't understand. This is about my business. And I will like, yeah, I don't give a damn about your business. Okay. So there had been time that I have fought like this and I have grown because of those experiences. I have also understood that I have made mistakes in on the way and learned through those mistakes. Okay. Like um, every client that I worked with, whether good or bad, it taught me something. And but one thing that I usually tell that, see, and see, this is a part of the journey. First is that when we are graduating, when we are getting into the industry, either you are a pure generalist, okay, and in that case, you need to wear all the hats to be a general person who has a good taste, who can put to, or you are a person who is with craft. So as a designer, you can be either of these two things. I was somewhere in between, I would say. Um, and if you are a craft person, you will spend a lot of time doing the craft and in the first initial days, becoming very core deep into that. And while you are doing that, you will feel very excited because you can do so many things with tools and everything. But finally, if you want to actually apply that to business, you will have to go through the process of grinding against the business to learn those, what business mean. And sometimes, like I say, that, it after 3 4 years, every designer, and I don't know whether this will expedite over the years, 3 4 years after that, every designer feels that what I'm doing with my life, I don't know. I want to leave design. I want to do, maybe a product designer will think that I want to open a coffee shop. An architect will think I should go back to, making drawings, or somebody will think that I would should do this. And actually, people feel like giving up. But at the same time, to understand that design, for you to be a good designer while craft and everything is going on, you also have to experience life. Because if you don't feel the pain of the human, all the human across you, you cannot design for them. So when I was making a healthcare app, when I was a college student, I would make that, okay, let's do this, like, and be trying to be ultra smart in building something, right? Hmm. Put together some very fancy idea. But 10 years down the line, when I have gone through some health episodes, I've seen my family go through health episodes. Your understanding of health is not just about being smart to throw some, good solution to the user, but understand that there is so much going on, going on around this person, and how can you help build an experience which takes care of everything. So I think this is a really, and I say that, designers typically take time to become really, really, they mature like fine wine. So it takes some time.
So in and we have a lot of people who are like bubbling with a lot of ideas and they want to sort of right at the get-go start their own practice. Do you have any advice for them that they should be taking up?
Yeah, I think if you have built a knack for something which is very unique, it's go for it. Hmm. I mean, see, I mean, and I honestly don't give any advice about what exactly to do, because everybody has to chart their own path. Everybody has different kind of skills, everybody has different kind of, but yes, put your head down, learn new things. The only advice that I would like to give people is that think more deeply before jumping into anything. Okay, do more research about it. Okay, and uh, see, one person can be very smart at getting into the industry, and if your skill is about being adaptable, then get into the industry with what is happening right now and try to build something around that, and absolutely great. But there's other way of looking at it, and I would say everybody should not follow that path. Some of the folks should also look at spending time into some deep work which is going to be effective in the future. Now, whatever we are doing today is already being done. Now, imagine, like in the AI world, I keep quoting this, that the people who spend last 10 years, 15 years working in the AI field are the ones who are getting the most benefit. The software developers who have, or the computer scientists who have built AI models, but they had been working really hard all this while. So I would push all the new designers and that try to look at what is happening in the US, in universities, what is the next trend? The trend that we are seeing is already done because it has come to us. So if you want to really be relevant and building something for the future, look beyond what you are seeing around you. Okay. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Um, Moving to your work at Myntra. So Myntra as a platform, as a product, as an app is sort of catering to India, which is uniquely diverse. There's different languages, different digital fluency, different behaviors and expectations. How do you design for such a broad audience and not compromise on the experience? What is your sort of one thing that you will not compromise on and that remains at the core of your design while designing for Myntra?
Yeah, I think India presents very unique challenges when we're designing because we have a very diverse population. And in real business sense, we actually have cuts that, there are high affluent users, there are, mid affluent users, and your low affluent users. And each of them have very different, you know, um, perception of design. Okay. And like they perceive a product very differently based on how they look and feel, right? So and also they have very different sensibilities. Somebody is very price sensitive, somebody is very value sensitive, somebody is very brand sensitive, somebody is luxury sensitive. Now, so there is no one single solution, by the way, but I can just tell that, when you go to a you when you're solving for a particular product or particular problem, first you have to understand that which cohorts are you catering to. When you do that, then you have to understand that what are their perception. For example, at one point of time when I was in Practo, we had a design which, when our users saw that design, they thought that we are more pricier than our competitors just by looking at the visual design, because the kind of colors that we had chosen and the kind of layouting and whatever we had done, they felt that we had a pricier product than our competitor, which was actually not true at all. So you really need to understand these patterns of human behavior at every level to create those. Now, there are some good benchmarks which are actually, but at the same time, you can see and take these as benchmarks like YouTube, because the entire Indian population is using YouTube, whether it's rich or whether it's poor, everybody's using YouTube. So some design patterns are very common and some are very different. Hmm. Okay. So we have to really go deep and understand those nuances and then design accordingly.
Right. Moving to you were just talking about AI. So there is a lot of, I would say, noise that is happening with AI. There's of course some things that are of really good use, scalability, research. Some processes have cut down to like half the time now. What do you think is the role of AI in the current uh, landscape of design, and what is it that people should be looking out for, people should be sort of latching themselves onto, and then some of it is just like clutter and then we can let that go.
Sorry, can you repeat that? I just missed
So,
the
so
part.
there is a lot of chatter about AI. People are
Hmm.
like every day there's a new AI tool that has come up. What
Hmm.
do you feel that the landscape of design is going to see in the next 10 years with the with AI, different sort of AI coming in? And what do you think in the current scenario of things is just clutter, which is like there's a lot of different tools that you can build a high fidelity wireframe with an AI in just like 5 minutes tomorrow. Um, or you can cut down on your research in half the time that you
Yeah.
do right now. So what do you think is usable and people should really look at in terms of integrating them into your workflows and processes, and what can be just like left out and people can sort of let go of those?
Yeah, I think so. So 10 years is, by the way, a very long time that you're talking about for the AI timelines. Okay, things will change very fast. But in the near future, what I see in a year or two, we are going to optimize the workflows. Okay, so um, there are going to be three, four stages. One is the first is, and see, this is again, I'm talking about design in the context of tech. Now, and the other thing is that we have to understand that tech will evolve so fast that there is no, uh, and especially I think uh, designers really like um, uh, order. But with all of this, there's going to be a lot of chaos. Okay, and I think the most important part is to be able to deal with that chaos. The first thing is that we have to forget that all the processes and all the things that we learn, they're only a means to an end. They're only to make us ready for understanding how things work and why they work like that. For example, if you have a research process, now research is a means to an end. Okay, research, you are trying to understand the user. If there is a better means of understanding the user, I would rather use that. Okay, if there is a better way of understanding that, or maybe better way of making an interface, I will do that. Or if there is a better way of communicating to the user without an interface, then I should be doing that. So so we have to be extremely open. Now that's where when AI comes in, all of this, see, this would have any which would have happened over a very slow period of time, as development would have been very linear. But with AI, suddenly this thing is exponential. So what will happen first is that the workflows will evolve. Okay. So if you are doing a prototyping or design to this, the first thing you will expedite and product, you will make it more efficient. Now you're using these tools, and that's what we are doing right now. But the next level is where your workflows will completely change. Okay, you probably we have a way of saying that, okay, first we need to think about the product requirement and this and that. Maybe it will just flip around. Okay, you will experiment with something and randomly a lot of things and then throw into that, and the AI will figure it out that, okay, which product matches to what solution, and you try to do that. So some of these will get completely redefined, the workflows. That will happen, I think, another 3 4 years down the line. And then eventually, the thing is that we need to work more on systems, and you know how do you develop those design systems, because AI, let's say, is doing your 80 90% of the job task, but the rules of the of the whole experience is something that you need to set, um, whether that will be kind of a prompt or markdown or some kind of a JSON script or whatever, I don't know. But you will have to codify those things, and the humans will have to step up there to help this. Also, there will be a lot of um, you know I think there will be a complete new a- area that will develop, which is about what is right and ethics about and what are the ethical controls that you want to apply to this AI world. So there's going to be a lot of interesting areas that will develop out of this, and at the core of it also there will be that in the AI world, how user interface will evolve is also something that we will have to kind of work on. So yeah, I think we are taking step by step. So first is to kind of make our workflows efficient. Second is to remodify the workflows, and third is that build those massive systems which can help AI to build UIs by themselves, but then you need to make those rules and definitions.
Right. And I think there's a lot of hoopla around that. Will AI take over my job? And this is something that I read on LinkedIn all the time. But
Uh,
with AI coming in, what is it that a designer can do to sort of retain their unique voice? And as we all know, that humans sort of remain at the center of any and every design and any and every user experience. What can designers do to sort of um, get that across to the user or to the I don't know, client?
yeah, I think um, s- no. So I think it's uh, as long as you stick to the problem and this, what you're trying to solve. Okay, and you look at AI, and you actually want to solve that. Hmm. In all your honesty, you will look for the best tools to do that, and AI will probably be the best tool at that point of time, right? So I think um, being focused towards looking at the problem rightly is two things. One is that those people who are going to be very problem focused, for them AI is like great. And there will be also a category of people, and they are mostly from the craft point of view. For example, let's say visual design. Now, AI would be doing a lot of visual design in the future. But see, AI is basically mixing, matching everything and producing something. But you will always have this 1% extreme expert level craftsmen who will still be required if something new has to be thought through. Okay, and very human has to be something built, at least for some distant future. Okay, so that is going to stay. But yeah, the craft is going to the roles in craft is going to go very, very down and get very specific. But the other side of it, which is the problem solvers, and even when somebody says, okay, like for example, we have our, in our apps, we have so many creatives that needs to be built, or there's a product image that has to be done. Now, one person can say, okay, uh, I will keep making those things again and again and again manually, versus a problem solver will come and say, okay, what are the pattern, and then can I, replicate this pattern and make a system out of it, which kind of takes away that job. I mean, like, takes care of that work, and I can focus on something else. So, uh, those who will be focused on the problem and solving one problem with efficiency and then moving on to the next problem will people, the person who is going to be always relevant. And so I think those muscles needs to be built within the new designers, so that
Do you think new roles will also sort of pop up in the design space with AI coming in?
sure, yeah, I think yes. um yeah, but I don't know whether so what I don't know is that whether there will be new roles, or it may be that there are new roles that comes up, but at the end of the day the designers will all themselves morph into this new roles. I mean, so
Hmm.
one is that you have whatever designers you had, this, let's say there are four kind of roles that you have, and you have a new fifth role. Okay, that is one possibility. The other, I'm saying that these four will itself evolve into something very new.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Um, cool. Okay, and now I think we've spoken a lot about AI. I'm just gonna pivot again to just like design and career, etc. Um, so I think a lot of our learners and designers in general sort of struggle with the fact that what should they be focusing on early in their careers? Should it be building more skills or gaining like exposure through like different things? What is your sort of view on that? What should designers in their career, early in their career, should they be prioritizing?
uh, See, I mean, again, like I said, everybody has their own journey, but what I've definitely seen is that um, to build a good grip on what you're doing, um, getting early and doing, being like, I've started as services, and I've slightly biased there that, because initially working in the services sector helps you develop a lot more muscle across different things, right? Because once you are working with this client and another time you're working with this client, so everybody has a different context. You learn to switch context, you learn to develop, different point of views, and also different skills. Okay, so I think that is definitely helpful. Though these days people do get into product companies right from the beginning, and it builds a very different muscle. um, I'm not prioritizing any of the either of the two, but then I would say that the first one definitely helps build a much more broader point of view for you. So in the early career, if you spend some time in the kind of servicing industry, then you get to build that muscle. Okay.
Yeah. And as an employer and a recruiter yourself, what is it that you look for in people when they are sending out their resumes or portfolios that sort of instantly sort of sticks out to you and then you want to hire them, what is it that what are those things that you look out for in portfolios and resumes that people should be integrating now in their resumes?
Yeah, in this, if you have time, I can actually show you a small deck. Okay.
Please do.
Okay, and yeah, maybe that will be helpful. Let me just see where is that. Yeah. So this is something that I was presenting to another group, and I think it's relevant here as well. So hence, let me do this. Um, can you see
Yep.
the screen? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think the whole point starts from that, your strong core fundamentals are prerequisite to pass the evaluation stage. So when I'm looking at a portfolio, I'm quickly looking at some of the very core fundamentals. And what are the core fundamentals are? Like your visual communication, information design, interaction design. So, and in your portfolio, it comes across like, are you, how you have your typography? Do you have understanding of, the right justification, where to use, what kind of line height you are using? Some basics. Like 80% of the portfolio that we see, there's a mistake in that. I mean, like it doesn't reach that finesse. And see, you have to be really absolutely good at this. Without this, not even passing the evaluation stage. Copywriting, you have to have a taste in writing, write copy, or your English and how you pitch it. Usability fundamentals, user centricity, the tools that you have to know all the important tools that is there existing, at least a Figma, let's say Spline, Framer, or whatever. Research and design processes, you should be aware of that. You should be, and all should be well documented in the prototype. So there's a lot of work, by the way, just to even pass the evaluation stage, because this is like table stakes. Without this, we're not even having a conversation, right? It's the kind of thing, right? Because I, this is not what I'm hiring you for. This I need to you have, like it's like, this is something, the muscle that you need to have any which way. Okay. But then my evaluation start after this, once you have passed this stage, which is to eligible for the top 5% of jobs. Table stakes are not enough. Walk the extra mile beyond design. Okay. And there, basically, have you worked a lot about product and analytical thinking, problem solving? Are you a process designer? Have you worked deeply into frameworks and systems, or thinking, or design system thinking? Or maybe you have developed. So while in the fundamentals, I expect you to be good at everything. In top 5%, I don't expect you to be good at everything, but at least two or three should be very solid for you. Maybe you are very good at visual, and your illustrations and visuals are absolutely brilliant. Okay, so then you basically cut across to the 5%, right? And um, then comes that, have you built some depth? Because depth makes you an expert. In today's time, it's in very short supply. You don't find people with a lot of depth. So for example, somebody who has worked a lot on the e-commerce starts understanding or have some depth in the e-commerce playbook. What it does allows you to is that have a really good conversation with product managers and business people. For example, if you're working in the e-commerce, you will buy muscle and buy the depth. You know things like what is a shopping funnel, what is a referral, what is a checkout flow, how recommendation engines work. Now you don't I'm not looking for if somebody comes with that depth, I will be super happy to have that person on board, right? Because he understands the nuances of all of these things. Otherwise, I will have to spend time teaching that person, right? Okay. And then is and things like behavioral psychology, fundamentals at play, and B2B fundamentals. If you are working in the B2B side, maybe you have built your depth into building B2B products. That's again, sometimes people look for it. Sometimes somebody come from B2C, they will say, no, we want only B2B person, right? And I know at a entry level, probably building depth is difficult, but if you really want to get ahead of the curve, you have to do this, right? So data-centric design, research at scale, high level of craftsmanship, right? So these are some of the things that you can build. Even like if somebody is very good with visual and craft of emotion design, absolutely go for it, but build depth there, right? And then are you keeping up with the new developments around you? Stay up to date, right? Which is future proofing, coding and programming. I keep telling that unless you are very against coding and you are below 30, please pick up the uh, try to learn a bit of coding. And the good part is that with AI, you will not need to learn very deep coding and like very mundane coding. You can only get to the basics of coding and the logics and the algorithms, and you can probably start building something, right? um, and communication and linguistic, because see, I mean, emojis are what, like they are, that's one of the biggest interface, UI designs, revolution that has happened in the past, and innovation that has happened. So uh, they also form a part of linguistic, because now we are using them as a language, right? So think about that, how can you mix different areas of design to kind of bring up some innovation? um, Parametric design, which is generative design that I was talking about, AI tools and workflow, adaptability to new mediums like brain computer interface or AR, VR. These are the futures. Are you going deeper into that? Are you playing around, tinkering with that? And along with that, I think in everything, you can apply AI to bring more efficiency. You can use AI to learn these things. You can use AI to expedite the workflows and all of that. So I think this is mostly the model that I think I want to pass on to people, that yes, we use
Yeah.
this.
That's very structured. Thank you for sharing that, Shayak.
Mm.
I also wanted to ask you the flip side of the question. This is something that is desirable in a portfolio or in a resume.
Uh,
What is it that you often see people are putting in their portfolio, but they should not be putting it, like avoidable mistakes that people can sort of avoid falling in the trap of. I'm also quickly gonna open the
um,
questions since we are
yeah.
reaching the end of this session, and there's only like I only have like a couple of questions left. So if you have any other questions in the audience members, you can put it in the Q&A box, and then we'll sort of answer those systematically. Yeah, coming back to the avoidable mistakes.
I think first, like I said, that um, be very thorough with your. I mean, one is that your visual design has to be really spick and span. Then one thing that I keep telling is copy. Don't make copy errors or spelling errors and all of that, right? Those mistakes, those are not good to have. In terms of um, I, I mean, see, I would say there's, to be frank, these are bad execution is the only thing that I will, reject somebody for, because there is nothing called, uh, you know, I can't, everybody will make different mistakes apart from the bad execution, because you can do something very different and it is so unique that it catches my eye, right? And if I say that we do this and this is an error, um, uh, so yeah, I think the other thing is that if you're not presenting your thing properly, where the story is not coming through, a lot of time, I think a lot of time is spent, or the initial screen or page that people make in the portfolio, you're talking about something so different, and uh, you are not getting to the point. It it it's taking me too much time to kind of understand that what you have built, and to go through the portfolio even. I think those are the very tactical mistake, are something that you should avoid. Apart from that, by the way, it's a good point that these days, if you're not making your product on Premiere or Figma and you are sharing a Behance, then it's again becomes a, I would probably prioritize this lower than anything, right? So those are the things, the way the world is changing, you have to be on the right tools and all. These are the fundamental ones, but apart from that, everything, you can be creative and you can break any rule. See, I mean, there's no rule
I think
as long
I
as
think sometimes people get caught in the wanting to impress the employer and recruiter, and like, showcasing your work as this like jazzy, glittery piece of work, they sort of pick up and borrow from like many parts of the internet, and it becomes a little obvious that you sort of not worked on this and then borrowed pieces from here and there and just like put it together into a mashed khichdi and then present it as something.
That also
That's a
happened. You're true, true. I mean, that also happens. And like you said, right? You make even if you try to do too much of zing bang stuff without actually you know this meat into the whole what you are showing, that also doesn't fly through. So just visual is not good. Some of the best portfolios are where you have people are actually see the visual has to be clean and your copy has to really support that really well, and when that comes together then it catches your attention. By the way, there are people who have, there was one guy who created a video resume, okay, and send it across. There are people who have created a chat bot through which you can actually, look at their portfolio. So there are so many things that people have done, and I think those are also good ideas. Uh,
presenting, yeah. So presentation in a very creative manner is also a good idea to just like catch the eye. Yeah,
yeah.
agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But see, I mean, I will, by the way, just I will take a beat. See, different organizations have different priorities. Okay. Hmm. So you have to be also clear about that. So when you're going for anything, um, do a research, talk to people who are in the organization, because even some larger MNCs or organizations might want to say, "Ki, okay, I want you to be very, very traditional.
Yeah.
I don't want to flamboyant something." And in
Yeah.
some cases, like if you are in a B2C startup and all of that, they might say, okay, yeah, I want something very flamboyant. So it,
Yeah.
it, it matters a lot. It's kind of different, yeah.
Yeah. I think this is my last question, which is essentially, so I'm really, really boiling down on uh, how to be a design leader, which is that um, it's sometimes difficult to sell design when it's on screens because it's not a very tangible thing. So how do you sort of communicate to non-design people to and sort of advocate for long-term UX thinking when people sort of want short-term ROI on design stuff? So how do you sort of convince your C-suite and your senior management to be able to just like get on board with what your long-term plan with design is?
No, I think so. By the way, this is always a struggle. This is always a tough thing to solve for, and it's not been easy. I mean, everywhere you go, um, and there are different ways of doing it. Some people do it with extremely good thought leadership and storytelling, right? Okay, where you present a vision. Okay, but then there are organizations where probably, like you said, here and now is more important, and people are not. Maybe they appreciate the vision, but they are actually looking at something which is immediately doable. I think for me, it's important that I understand the business priorities. Okay, and what in product companies and large tech companies, what I've seen is that because even um, uh, uh, when you a big design exercise, see, there are small things that you can keep doing and experimenting and all of that, but a large design exercise is very difficult to have a buy-in for. And you have the vision that you create based on the business priority, then you look at what are the big organizational movements that are happening. For example, let's say there is a tech stack that is changing. There is a new recommendation engine that is getting built, or something is happening. You have to leverage those time to put your vision and then sell it, because then the story all fit together. So I think a large part of that exercise is about finding the right timing and putting things together and presenting it to the C-suite, because then everybody's mind is ready to accept that. If you go at a time and when it's not ready to accept, it becomes a very really tough job. So yeah, I think a large part of it is basically navigating that entire system and understanding where to put your foot in.
Fair, fair. So I think we have a bunch of questions from our audience members. So without any further ado, I'll just like it's 8 o'clock already. Are you okay with like
I
us
can
spending
extend it.
five,
Yeah,
10?
sure, sure. Yeah.
So so somebody's asking when hiring freshers for big brands like Myntra, what's one main thing that you do look for?
Like I said, I mean, first is even now today, I will look for extremely good design chops when it comes to, your first of all, your visual design finesse, then your, quality of problem solving, your understanding. So, like I said, the fundamentals, they all have to be in place, right? And then in these days, so we are always looking for somebody who has all of this and then has something delta on top of that. Okay, so somebody who is very good with, let's say, AI tools, somebody who's very good with, or maybe very good with illustrations, or maybe very good with design system, or maybe very good with, let's say, prototyping. So we look for somebody who has the basics covered and then a delta in something, so that when he comes into the team, he brings that knowledge and help everybody grow. So that's the whole idea.
Yeah. So I think this is one of our learners. He has a concern. I think somebody is saying my major concern is what recruiters look for more, the degree or the portfolio, while considering the applicants. I have switched my career from financial to designing, and I don't have a proper bachelor's degree in designing, and I'm worried somewhere or the other it'll impact the jobs I get. I'm currently enrolled in the part-time diploma course at and planning on to continue to PG diploma. Will that be enough to get good jobs in the industry?
Tough question to say. See, I mean, it uh, in the near in the close future, in the past, sometime in the past, obviously degree didn't matter much. But when the demand goes down and the supply is slightly higher, the demand starts filtering people on different parameters, right? So one then becomes degree. Mm. Previously, what I think 5 years back, if the industry had 100 position, there were only 50 people. So another 50
Yeah.
people, like 50 people with degree, and let's say the another 50 people will have to come from without a degree, right? Okay, and the field was open. Now with that reversing, okay, one of the filtering has become the degree to some extent, but it is not true that it's always the same. Okay, uh, but in the pressure, it slightly becomes challenging because people are looking at, like, for example, in our case only, we used to hire from very different background, but now that we are not hiring too many new users, so we typically go to the market, to the colleges like IT Guwahati or IDC, IT Bombay, and then our the positions that we have, they get filled up with that. So some of these places then slightly toned down, but if you go very in the past, the usual route was that you get into a services company, you learn the chops, and you have a super good portfolio. The other option is to have a very super good portfolio. Hmm. And for that, either you can work very hard in the side to build that portfolio, or you get into a company where you are able to build that portfolio and quickly then have your things into order. So yeah, that's how we probably have to do it.
Yeah. Somebody saying I am a graphic design fresher and struggling with building my portfolio. Do you think I should include projects from my core, like brand identity projects, or should I include like diverse projects?
So, but she's doing product design right now, right? UX
They're a
design. She's
graphic design fresher.
no, she's a graphic design. Oh, acha. But she's applying where? Which kind of job she's looking for?
They're just asking if they should include only brand projects in their portfolio or like diverse, like different campaign
See,
design,
for
etc.,
graphic
etc.
design, if you're going to get into the creative merchandise team or creative team or graphic team, or let's say you're going for a agency, then of course you have to put all of those, right? But if you are coming for a product design UX role, they cannot be the primary projects. They have to be the supporting projects. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have another comment by Tanmay. Tanmay is saying, thank you for such an informative session. For an economics graduate at 25 wanting to step into design field, with the introduction of AI, it is now recommended to uh, do the con the do the conventional route of UCED and masters, or start learning from online academies and start working. In short, brand recall value versus skill and experience versus freelancing for a rewarding career. How would timelines differ in either of the cases?
Tough question to answer because I have seen, like I said, and I don't think I have seen any, but most of the designers have very different trajectories. Okay. Um, uh, One thing that I can tell you is that, see, in today's world, uh, at least in India, whatever, the colleges you're going to study, like you said, UC and all, being industry ready education that you need, that is not private, it's not that you can only get there. So industry readiness can come from anywhere. Yes, the problem is the degree part, which is, if companies are going there first and then coming to the market, then, whether those number of openings are there or not. And like I said, that same answer, that you can kind of circumnavigate that scenario with other things. But to be honest, there is enough avenue, and in fact, this time when I went to a college, a premium college, let's say IIT, um, I saw both kind of candidates, and the candidates who were actually good were not because primarily what they have you know it's primarily because what they have put their own effort into. Okay, so they have learned a lot of tools, a lot of things by themselves. They have hustled
Mhm.
and got internship, not because they were from that IIT or something, but they have got their internship, or they have done their internship into international companies, put effort there,
Mhm.
and they have themselves reached out, cold called, and got those internship. And those are the ones that inspire, kind of impressed us, because they have put the effort beyond what they were studying. So to be job ready, you don't really need that college degree, but like I said, with the times, sometimes that filters is definitely comes up.
Yeah. Somebody is asking, I've seen this in a lot of companies. Being a designer, do I also need to be good at copywriting?
I mean, my personal point of view is that you are a better designer if you are a good copy. You're good with copy also. Some of the best designers that I have known are those who think copy all by themselves. They don't. I mean, by the way, like, even if you are doing designing, if you use lorem ipsum, it is total no-no. Don't make any screen, even if you are present before internal. You should write the content. You should fill the content. Don't use lorem ipsum. Okay. And similarly, when you're writing it, think the copy through. So it's an absolutely good skill, because in my fundamentals I've written this, so your copy has to be good, because large part of user experience is also the copy. Okay. I know it is not easy.
Natasha is
By the
another.
way, I was saying that it's not easy, because many of us are not, we don't come from the background where copy becomes, by default good. But if somebody wants to build a kind of a leverage, copy can be a great leverage.
It is one of the many hats that one can wear as a designer as well,
Yeah.
that we spoke about. So Natasha is asking, what is your number one advice to someone who's just starting off in design, especially in the AI-led design age?
Sorry, can you repeat?
What is your number one advice to someone who's just starting off in design, especially in the AI-led design age?
Uh, like I said, uh, be get your fundamentals strong. Hmm. Okay. And Yeah, I think get your fundamentals strong, because rest everything will happen because of the environment. You will automatically learn everything. Okay, so that's not a problem. But go deep and get your fundamentals strong. That's the thing.
Somebody has a very specific question. So, how can we apply design principles for public policy and governance to improve outcomes?
Um, I mean, by the way, like, when we were studying design, we used to do a lot of, I mean, a lot of our inspiration were actually public policy work that happens abroad in Europe and everything, and also in India probably. So some of the human-centered design is best practice in a really public policy, and public work that the government does. Unfortunately, in India, it is, what the situation is and the state is. I haven't explored that area much, okay, in India at least. But see, it's a human center. So, like for example, there's a field called service design, right? Mm. And that is completely into, building very large scale, multi-touch, I mean, like, varied touch point kind of a environment for large public policies or public services like healthcare, or like, public transport. So these are really good areas where design can play a very big role, and I think designers should do that. And like I said, with AI coming in, a large part of the public policy will also be about the ethics and compliances aspect to it, and designers can play a very big role there. Yes.
Yeah. I think this is the last question for the evening, which is how do you deal with imposter syndrome in design? Like, you can design, but how do you confidently present your ideas without feeling like maybe this isn't good and you keep dissecting your own design?
Yeah, I think over the time this has happened. I
This
mean,
is
we
something
all.
that we would sort of create. This is something which we would call in the older days a creative block. I don't know, or something like that.
Um, no, I think what here the question is, the one who is asking the question, he or she means that, um, and I don't know if I got it right or not, but see, this used to happen because I was never happy with my design. Okay, and this happens with us, right? When we have to make our own portfolio or own website, we never end up doing it unless and until there is a, interview coming up, and then you have to completely make it, right? So we are always lost. Like, okay, no, it can be better. It can be. I think I can just share my experience. Okay, I have been through this experience, like, where you are continuously. So there was, when I was running my own company, there was a time when we completely did. We had a client. We did the whole design. We delivered the design. It got developed, and then I felt that it's such a bad design that I've made. I went back and made the whole design again and went back to them with everything ready. I said, okay, you don't have to pay me again, but this is the new design. He said, what will I do with this? I said, sir, keep it. You might, if you think that, you will have the bandwidth to execute this, execute it, or don't do it, whatever. So yeah, I remember that there was a time, but I think over the time you understand how to where to draw the line, because and there are many such cases that happen. For example, the other problem that I always used to have was moving from wireframe to visual design, or visual design to wireframe. Okay, because both of them need to have a slightly separate. Because if you are doing visual design plus wireframing at the same time, kind of shaping it at the same time, you are not you're allowing the visual perception to kind of mold your solutioning, which is a bad idea. Okay, and when you are doing this, you are only wireframing or prototyping, then you are not able to think in terms of the visuals, that how it will kind of fit into that. But over the time, this experience, I was able to separate this out. And when I'm doing wireframing, I can think visual. When I'm thinking visual, I can think wireframe. So now it has got resolved over the time. But initially, it was a big problem. The only way I could solve it was that, do a lot of work. I used to do a lot of hard work. So if I need 10 iterations to feel that I'm good doing enough, then I will put that extra effort to do 10 iterations. So to everybody is own how they want to solve this.
Yeah. Somebody's also asked for book recommendation for building strong design fundamentals. Do you have any?
Yeah, I mean the standard books are there. Like, obviously, I think you all have must have read that, design of everyday things and things like those. Um, uh, like e-commerce playbook, Steve Kruger's Don't Make Me Think. So there are a couple of these books. Recently, I don't remember any particular one that uh, read a lot. Yeah, but yeah, some of these definitely can be. Maybe I can share a list which I had
Yeah,
read
I
long
think with
time
that
back.
we've reached the end of the session. I usually like to close all of these sessions with one question that I love asking all of our speakers, which is, if tomorrow in an unconstrained world you have to redesign something, and something maybe very small like a safety pin, and something very big, or something very big like a metro railway system, what would you redesign?
To me, this question,
Yeah.
hmm, what would I redesign? Um, like, I see, I would love to redesign our cities.
Yeah. Fair point. Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much for doing this with us, Shayak. I think I had a really great time and I already feel richer after having this conversation. I hope all of our audience members also felt that way. Um, I hope you had fun while learning something new with Shayak. Thank you for sticking around till the end of this session. I know it's a little late, but thank you for joining us today. With that, I end the session and I say good night and bye bye.
Bye. Bye to everybody.